Hi there, it's Tim Fairfield from Keysight Technologies in Toronto, Canada. Today I'm going to talk about connector care specifically for the ruggedized 1mm to either 1.85 or 2.92 millimeter adapters that are there. They're both used on the N1060 for the DCA sampling scope and also on the real-time UXR on the high-end scopes that are 110 gigahertz, and anything above 70 gig I believe uses that as well. So let's get right into it. When you receive this, any of these modules, you'll receive an accessories kit. I'm using the example here for the N1060, but it does apply to the UXR. Let's just go through this and quickly highlight, we want to avoid breakage of these connectors, and they are susceptible to breakage. It has happened in the field, and it's really hard to know whether they're broken until you put a signal through it. So in the kit, you will receive, there's wrenches put vertically on the side, and sometimes those are missed. Those are rigid fixed wrenches. The other thing, maybe I'll just grab one. Give me a second here. So right here is the, this is your standard 0.9 Newton meter torque wrench, 8 foot-pounds. This is your, this is another wrench. This is used for the ruggedized connector that we're talking about, the red side of this wrench, okay? So that grips the outside, and we'll see that in the picture in a second. This is only for other type of connectors on the right, but we're not using that for this. And the two rigid wrenches, this is used on the outer. Now I don't know if they're all as shiny as this one, but that's how they're a little bit different. But this is a smaller opening than this one here. So and then the other thing, that's a 7 millimeter is a smaller one, and an 8 millimeter is the bigger one. And these are the connectors we're talking about. So if I can hold that up so you can see that a little better. A little harder to see in the picture, but you'll see it in the diagram soon. So let's zoom down in the diagram. So on the front end of the channel input that you'll find either on the UXR or the sampling scope, you have this threads, and the ruggedized connector goes on the outside. Now let's zoom in a little bit on this connector itself. It's very important to understand this connector and how it's mechanically put together. You have the threaded where your cables go on. This is this whole thing is one piece, but these adjacent adapters are not connected by a joint. So this is where it can break, and you cannot see when it does break. So if you were attaching this onto the scope and then holding it here, that's the wrong thing to do. You need to be holding on the nut that is right here. So on here on the nut is where you should be when you're attaching it to the scope. When you're attaching a cable, however, you want to be gripping it here with a rigid wrench and then torquing it on here. And let me show you how that looks. Let's look at the connection. So I just want to point out in the accessories guide right now, this color coding, the orientation's a little off there, but that's okay. We'll maybe in a later version they'll fix that. What I want to show you is where you should be holding these. So zooming in, key thing, whenever you're removing or attaching anything using this connector, you should be holding a rigid wrench, and you should be holding a torque wrench, which does have a breakover when the torque is reached, okay? And there's actually a specified point to be holding it so that you're holding it there. The other, or this wrench when you're attaching the cable. So let's look at the first situation that I have on the screen behind me. You have the 8 millimeter wrench connected right against the face of this. And remember, this here is all one piece. There's the gap in the middle. Oops, let me just close that out. And then there's the gap in the middle down here. It's not a gap, it's not an air gap, but it's mechanically, it's not a full linkage into this. And this is the N1060A channel input or the UXR channel input. That will be held with the torque wrench. This will be held rigid, and then when you torque it, you'll be moving this wrench. Okay, so that's when you attach there. When we go down and look at how you're attaching a cable, every time you're attaching the cable, you must be holding two wrenches, one rigid one to hold the outer part of the body. So this here, right here, is one piece. That's one solid piece. This small gap down here that we see is not rigidly connected here. Okay, but this is. And so you will be attaching the cable, you'll get it started with your fingers, and then you will torque it with this cable here. So now I'm going to go over to the actual scope, and I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like with real cables and a real system. Okay, this is the demonstration of the removal of cables from the N1060. We have a wrench here. Going to connect that onto the barrel. So again, you always should be holding two wrenches. One will be a rigid wrench and one will be a torque wrench, and they should be about 90 degrees before you torque it. So we're going to be removing the cable, so you absolutely must hold that, and what we don't want is this to be rotating. So I'm going to connect this on here, and I'm going to turn to the left, and I'm not going to be, so we've carefully got rid of the torque, and then by hand I'm going to take that off. I'm going to carefully remove that. Again, this one goes right on the outer barrel when you're removing a cable, and I'm going to show you later on how to do the connectors. Let's do the other one now. I'm going to try to form a 90-degree angle. So that you have a good view of what's going on. And then by hand complete that and remove it. And that's as simple as that stage goes. So that you have a good view of what's going on. And then by hand complete that and remove it. And that's as simple as that stage goes. Okay, the next stage we're going to remove the, I've got 2.9 to 1 millimeter adapters. First of all, you need a wrench. This is the wrench that comes with the kit. It's 10 pound-inch. This is the red side. This is for removing the Keysight rugged 1 millimeter connectors. I also have a rigid wrench. Again, like I said before, you should always be holding a wrench. This will go on the outside barrel to do the rotation. This is key. You need to put this wrench right against. There's a hex nut right against attached on that side, and in the middle they aren't really connected. That's where the braking can happen. Opposite direction. There will be maybe a slight amount of movement because there's a little give on the wrench. Get it started. And again, remember you have your zap strap on when you're doing this, and it's just to carefully break that, and there you go. So I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to connect this and try to do it in a 90 degree. And that's it. And then what I do is with my finger, because once you get the seal broken, you're good. And that's it. The next I'm going to do is attach. So I've got a 1.85 millimeter. Let's put this up here. I don't want to damage the screen while I'm doing that. So I'm going to carefully feel, just trying to hold it. And you just get it making contact. We don't force anything here. Getting that in right, you don't want to cross thread it. And I just hold there's some friction there on the silver connection. Now, when we're connecting these up, we're now going to tighten that up. Oh, have this, I gotta get on to the back. This nut again against the wall. It's the opposite. That's it. And again, when you're holding these two like this, if there's any movement, it's okay because they're against the same shaft. So, I mean, they're mechanically attached to one another. This is the rigid piece on the bottom, so I've got that against there. And just get that latched on. There you go, get the brake over. And those are on good. Now, we're going to reconnect the cables now. So, I'm going to put that torque wrench away. This is quite critical, this one, because it's when you're turning the outer ring. So, when you're using heavy, thicker cables, be very careful not to move them afterwards. You want to just put them in straight, don't rotate, because it becomes like a giant. If I were to rotate that, it will put quite a bit of force. So we're just going to get that threaded on. And the key thing is that we don't want this back part to rotate at all. So we're going to put it on the barrel. The barrel is here, and I'm going to tighten that, and you're going to focus. This back end shouldn't move because remember, this is somewhat floating, and that's going to cause an issue. It's going to break it if that moves. So I'm going to put the next one on, just a little less than finger tight, just till you feel just a bit of resistance. Then you connect this cable on. Be conscious not to let that other end move. I'm going to go a few times here. That's quite loose. That's broken over. So now they're both on. If you ever have to move a cable, do not use this alone. You should always be holding the other wrench. You must, otherwise you will break it. Because if you start putting force here, this will unscrew that from here. So you want to carefully put that on. If you need to remove a cable, get it, crack the torque on it, and then by hand take it the rest of the way and hold the cable, support the cable with the other hand. I'm going to put this back on. And this is a bit of a slow process, but the last thing you need is a broken connector. There you go. And that's it. Okay, so I do want to bring to your attention what it looks like. Say you receive a unit and it is broken, or what does it look like? If I'm using a PAM4 signal and I'm in differential, I might see something funky. But when I split out and look at each signal, the best way to kind of debug and see if you do have an issue there is to put the same signal into both channels, either the P and the N channel, put it in I mode, and then take a look. And if it's bad, PAM4 signal may end up looking like this. That wouldn't be very good if that is. Long ago, far away? No! Okay, so it has happened to Darth Vader, so don't let it happen to you. Anyway, thank you very much. Tim Fairfield, Keysight Technologies. Hope this has educated you on that. And don't break a leg or a connector.